Hello, everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about how to add Azure Bot as a skill in Copilot Studio. Before we go into the details of this tutorial, let me first give you some context, talk about why should you care. So if you have been following news in AI, it will not be a surprise for you to know that Microsoft is making big push into AI. Copilot Studio is a very strategic product in their portfolio of AI products. Copilot belongs more to low code, no code solution space. If you have been following my previous videos, you must have heard me talk about their Power Platform suite of products, which are also low code, no code solution. Copilot Studio is a good addition in low code, no code space, but also catering to AI kind of business area. Earlier name for Copilot Studio was Power Virtual Agent, so more aligned with Power Platform naming convention. But Copilot Studio now is doubling down more on AI and uh, and AI space and Microsoft's push for Copilot brand name. So why should you care about this tutorial? Because Copilot Studio is low code, no code. The reason you may want to care is although Copilot Studio is low code, no code solution, sometimes you may want to extend that with pro dev capabilities. And that's what we have seen a lot with our customers at Cloudatica, that they fall in one of these two categories or combination of these two. One is these customers might have already made a lot of existing investment in Azure Bot Framework, and they don't want to throw away. Now that Copilot Studio has those features, but still they want to leverage whatever investments were already done. The second is there's still some gaps. Copilot Studio is maturing very fast, which is a good thing, but still there might be some gap in the feature set, and you may want to fill that with the pro dev capability available in Azure Bot Framework. So that's what this tutorial is about. We also wrote a very detailed article at our Medium page in Cloudatica. In fact, I'm going to follow that page, follow that article for some of the steps. It's pretty involved and it's going to be slightly longish video, so be prepared. Okay, a little bit about us. So who is Cloudatica? We are a Microsoft consulting partner for AI and Power Platform. And if you need any consulting training or one-on-one coaching help, please reach out to us at hello@cloudatica.com. For this tutorial, there are some prerequisites that we recommend. This is not like an intro level tutorial. So you need to have some high level knowledge of what Copilot Studio is. This is not the intro video for Copilot Studio. You need to have high level idea for Azure Bot Framework. You don't need to be expert to be very clear on any of these, but high level idea will be good. The third one is you need to have some basic understanding of how web services work. For example, what does it mean when we say that something is talking over HTTP, something is a route in your web service? Those high level ideas you should have. And the last one, having some basic idea of what Azure App Registration means. Again, you don't need to know the details of any of these things. No in-depth knowledge is expected, but this is not an intro on some of the things that we will cover in this tutorial. So with that, let me switch over to my Medium article because that will tell you the high level steps. So here is the article that I mentioned. I gave the same context. At very high level, we have listed the steps here, and we'll go through those steps one by one. So the first step is that making sure that you have the right capabilities in your Azure Bot Framework. This might look like a duh thing, but still important. So what does it mean? It means that in your bot framework, and I'll show you the code in my Visual Studio, in your activity handler, you should have some event and some activity that you're handling. So here's my Visual Studio. So this is the sample bot that I have. I took the sample that Microsoft provided and I did some tweaking because I did not want to do Lewis and other things. So I just commented out some code. So this is pretty much the sample code, which has the activity handler. And as you can see, it processes different events here. And the event that I'm going to handle is this one. So these are the activity names that we're going to handle. It could be book a flight or get weather. For this tutorial, book a flight was very complicated, and here we are not going into details of how to implement certain features. Here we'll go into skills. So I created a very dummy implementation for get weather. So you see this is calling begin weather. When I go down, let me go down and show you what begin weather does. It's nothing fancy. All it does, it just sends a message called dummy weather skill. But you can, of course, expand it to do whatever you want to. So this is definitely important that you need to have this kind of activity handler implemented in your bot framework. Okay, step 2, make sure that you have a manifest file for the skill. This is very, very important. In your Azure Bot Framework, you need to have a manifest file because this is the file URL. This is the manifest file URL that you will need eventually when we do the integration with Copilot Studio as a skill. So in this article, I have put the screenshot of this, but let me also show you in the code. By the way, I'll also put the link to the article in the description below. Okay, so let me go to my code. And in this code, you see a folder called manifest. So this manifest has a file. Again, I updated it. This is the format. To be honest, it took me a lot of time to figure out. Microsoft doesn't do a very good job in giving you error message if the manifest file is not right. So if you are trying to adopt it for your scenario, you can take this and modify it to put your own bot name and the activity and all that. So this gives you basic framework. And don't worry, I know you can see my secret and MS App ID and all that. I'll just recycle all that after this video. But I just wanted to put the real one so that you get idea. And I'll talk about some of these endpoint URL and all what they mean. So that's my second step. As part of second step, you also have to make sure that you have a URL in your web service. By the way, in this code demonstration, I'm using Node.js. I'm very comfortable with that, but the same concepts will apply even if you use C# or something else. If you're struggling with that, let me know in the comment and I'm happy to do a follow-up video on that. So what do I mean by exposing this manifest? Because there is some URL that you'll have to give to your Copilot Studio in the later step. So how will Copilot Studio know what URL to go and reach? So for that, I have exposed something here. So as you can see, if you're familiar with Node.js, server.getManifest star, that means if you go to manifest folder, whatever file you have there, it will just show that there. So in the manifest folder, we have this file, and that's what we will use for as the URL for the manifest file. Okay, that should be it for second step. Now, host this bot as a web service. That's the next step. So now we have the basic Node.js code. For you to make it a web service, for our testing purposes, what I will do, I will just start this web service. And if you're familiar with Node.js, you will know that if you do npm start, it will start a web service. So as you can see, it has started a web service that is reading from this index file. And now all these URLs that we have here, they are now available at localhost at this port. Okay. But now here is a problem. If this web service is running on your local machine, how will you access it from Copilot Studio, from your Azure and all that, the steps that you need for later steps in the tutorial, because this URL has to be accessible over the internet. So the ideal thing to do is to host it in somewhere. It could be in Azure, but it doesn't have to be Azure. You can have something in AWS. If you have your own server, you can host it anywhere. In the article, we have given a link on how to easily do that using Azure. But for this testing, I'll use a utility called ngrok. And this, I'm a big fan of this utility because you don't need to wait for deployment and making sure that the right URL works over the internet. Ngrok allows you to do it easily on top of your local host. Once you're happy with the testing, then you can go for production setting. Of course, ngrok is not something that I'll recommend when you actually have your bot live, but for a quick testing, this is very handy. So I'll do a later video on ngrok because this is such a cool tool. So follow my channel if you are interested in that. But for now, let me move on and assume that somehow you'll figure out what ngrok is. I have given the link in the article. So in my terminal, all you need to do, so I had already started it, I'll stop it. All you need to do with ngrok is ngrok, HTTP, and this local host, that's where our current service is running. So remember when I showed here, this says that it's running at localhost this port, and just do this. And now we get this URL called HTTP. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is the URL that is actually mapping to this. So this URL now is actually accessible over the internet. So this is as if you have deployed your web service at this URL. And that's what I'm going to use here. When I did the article, I got a different URL, and those are the things that happens because you are doing just the testing. So this URL is different from what you see in the tutorial, but that doesn't matter. You will get a different URL anyway. So the next step is you have to register this app in Azure. And also important that in your app registration, put this manifest URL as the homepage URL. So what does it mean? Like I said earlier, you need to have basic familiarity with what app registration means in Azure. So I'll go to my Azure account. I'll click on app registration. I think I had done some app registration earlier, but this information has changed. App ID doesn't change, but I had done the configuration where I had to put the, here, redirect URL. In the redirect URL, I had put, in the properties and branding. Yeah, in the properties and branding, you see this homepage URL. This is what I have to change because my URL has changed now. So if you're doing a brand new app registration, come to branding and properties, go to homepage URL, and make sure that you have the right URL for this and manifest, and this depending on what the JSON file name of your manifest file is. Make sure you give the right homepage URL. For testing, I'm going to just use the ngrok URL that we got. So I'm just going to copy it. Go back here, and I'm just going to put it here. This is the URL. Before I do that, I also want to make sure it works. So I'm just copying this and testing to see if I get the JSON file that I want. Yeah, this is ngrok, so you're getting some warning. And as you can see, I'm getting the manifest URL that I had there. So that means this URL is working fine. I'll go back to my Azure and I will save this. And I think that's it for app registration. I'm assuming that you already know how to do app registration. That's not very complicated. Just go to app registration and do the new one. I created the one and I already have application ID and all. So I'll skip that step. If you need more detailed video on app registration and other things, let me know via the comment, and I'm happy to do that in future. Okay, so now a few things that you should also remember, that if you're doing in Node.js, you have a file called .env that tells a few properties. This should map to what you have in your Azure app registration. This is for Node.js. If you're doing that in .NET, C#, .NET also has some similar thing. I think it's called app setting or something. Again, if you need help, let me know. I'm happy to show the same thing in C# as well, in .NET as well. So multi-tenant, because this is the type of authentication that this app registration has. So I'm just mapping it to that one. Yeah, this one, it says that this is multi-tenant. App type, app ID. So go back to overview and you'll see app ID. This is what I'm putting here. App password and tenant ID. So tenant ID is here, and password, again, I'm showing you password, but I'm going to recycle it. So in fact, I can't show you my password. I already had the password. So this is the secret that I'm using. When you create, if you don't have it, you just have to create a new secret. And let me show you how to do that. Just I'll just say test1, create a new secret. It will create a password for you. You just have to copy it so that you don't lose it. And once you go out of the screen, you won't see it again. Like for example, if I forgot my secret, I can't see it again. So I'll have to redo, which is fine. So seems like I had the same password. So I'm just going to delete the new secret. So these are the only information. Like I said, I did not use Louis and all that, so I just left it empty. The last one, which is also important, allowed callers. And star means it can be allowed from anywhere. Some people, for security reasons, they may want to put it for specific Copilot. So they'll have to put that Copilot ID. But in this case, I'm just putting star so that it can be called or it can be added as a skill from anywhere. Let me go back to my article and see what's the next step. So we covered the app registration part. We covered the branding part. We covered the .env part. Now, I think with this, we should be all set. So I'll go to my Copilot Studio. So where is my Copilot Studio? So there's my Copilot Studio. If you're, again, we are not going to go into intro, but this is a very basic test Copilot, which has, I think, all the basic simple topics. I don't think I even customized it. So, but if I go to settings and skills, you will see an option to add skill. I'll add a skill. And this is where I have to put the skill manifest URL. So remember, we talked about this URL that you have to create from your web service. I have it here. I tested that this manifest URL works. So I'm just going to copy this and put this URL here. If I followed all the steps correctly, this should validate and this skill should be ready to be used. Now there's a mismatch in your skill endpoint. These are some errors that sometimes you get. I think I know what might be happening because my previous endpoint URL was based on the previous ngrok URL that I got. So that's what might be going on. So let me go back to my index file. And where do I have the endpoint URL? Yeah, it's this one. So you see endpoint URL, and this URL is different from this URL. And the reason is because when I prepared the code, I had a different URL. So I'm just going to copy this. This is the URL that you use for your chat. If you're using emulator or if you're using Azure Bot Service, again, I'm not going into details of that. This is the URL that you use, URL/API/messages. I think this should do it. I saved it. Now I'm going to restart. I don't need to restart my ngrok because that's already talking to localhost. So now since localhost started again, hopefully this should take the new one. So let me go back to my Copilot Studio and try again. Let's see what happens. Yep. So this is all successful. It says I can save it. I'm saving it now. It takes some time to save. I think it all worked well. It says it's importing skill. But I can also, I think, close it. Or let me wait for some time just to make sure. This thing is it feels very fragile. It took me a while to figure out what's going on there. Okay, so it seems like this skill bot has worked. I have this new skill here. So how do I use it? So I'll close this. I'll go to a topic. I'll pick any simple topic. Let's say I take this simple topic. And now when I click on, let's say if I want to add an action, so click on call an action, and you will see the skill bot listed here. The skill bot name, I'll again map it back to how this is getting this name. But the skill bot, as you can see, is getting this get weather event that we had exposed. So let me map it to what we had put in our Visual Studio. So here's our Visual Studio. If you go to our manifest file, this was the name of the bot, skill bot, and that's where this skill bot name came when we were trying to add an action. So call an action skill bot. This is the name coming from manifest file. And this get weather is the skill activity that we have exposed. If we expose more, you'll see more of them. And so now whatever code you write in get weather, it's going to just execute it. You can even pass input and output. I just kept it simple for this tutorial. So that's about this. It feels a bit involved, many steps. That's why I also read the article so that you can follow it offline. Hope you found this video useful. If you want to reach out to us for any consulting, training, or coaching help on AI or Power Platform, here's our email, hello@cloudatica.com. Let me know through comments how you felt about this video. If you have any follow-up question, if you have feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.